We're going to use the same tools that we did to construct the windows on the other wall and apply it to the door on this one. I'll start by going to my mesh tool and the insert edge loop. And I have to return this back to the default because in the past tutorial we had set it for a sequence of 4 and I want it to have single edges once again. So now that I have that set the way I want, I'll go in and I'll drop the edges I want around the perimeter of the door frame. And now I'll go to my multi-cut tool. And with the multi-cut tool, I'll go to the orthographic view and I'll create these diagonals on either side. We only need 2 for this. And then I'll hit W on the keyboard. I'll select the vertical and horizontal edges, and I'll hold down the command key and hit the delete key, and I'll save that. So we've eliminated some of the polyfaces that we don't need. Now we're going to right click and choose face, and we'll select the polygon that's defined in the center of our geometry, and we'll go to our toolbar and we'll click on extract. Right clicking, I'll return to my object mode, and when I select that door surface, it's by itself. I'll freeze the transforms, delete the history, and center the pivot. I'll go to my perspective window now, and if I were to use my move tool, I can pull that surface out that I see there. Now we have to build the molding or the door frame before we actually do the door, so we'll return once again to the orthographic view where we're looking at that geometry. Now there's a setting inside every viewport where I can see all the edges I've created to make it a little bit easier to see the edges when they're not selected. So in my viewport, I'm going to go to the little white edge box with the blue box inside. When I click on it, all the edges and faces are showing. Now I'll hit 6 on the keyboard to return to my template. And once again, I'll get my edge loop tool and I'm going to put in the edges that will define the door frame. Again, I'm going to use the multi-cut tool and I'll define the corners, hitting return each time I set the edge I want. And as we've done before, I'll select the edges I don't want to keep, which are the verticals and the horizontals. And I'll hit Command Delete. Now that I have the door frame defined, I'll go to my perspective window. I'll right click and choose object mode, select that shape, and now I'm going to extract the door shape from the frame. I'll right click and choose face, select the face that will be our door, and again I'll click on the extract button. I'll right click and go to my object mode. I'll hit W on the keyboard, and now I can see that I've got that separate piece of geometry. And if I wanted to, I could set it so I can see all my edges inside that viewport as well. And this is what we're looking at. Now I'm going to select the door frame because I want to give that some thickness as if it were wood. I'll pull the door out straight on the x-axis and I'm going to right click and choose edge. I'll double click on one of the edges and we'll go around the whole perimeter of the door frame. I don't want the ones on the bottom of the very edge of the door frame to be selected. So I'll shift select to click them out and take them out of the mix. Now I'll go up and click on my extrude tool and I'll click on the little dial to center it, and on my x-axis I'll pull back to give it some thickness. I'll now return to the object mode, freeze the transforms, delete the history, center the pivot, hit W, and I'll pull that back to the wall again. Now all we have to do is deal with the door. Back in the side view with the door select, I'll hit 6 to get my template. Now the next thing I need to do is cut the section up where the windows will be on. So I'll get my edge loop tool and I'll click on either side of the vertical edges that define the door, and I'll hit W on the keyboard. Now I need to separate out this polygon face to put the divisions in for the windows themselves. I'll right click and choose face, click on that top face, and click on the extract button. I'll right click, return to my object mode, and if I select that now I can see I've got that separated out, so all we need to do is put the divisions in for the windows. We're going to reset the edge loop tool for 4 edges. Going up to the top of the interface mesh tools, insert edge loop attributes, multi-edge loops, and 4. With my edge loop tool, I'll click on any of these horizontal edges that define that new piece of geometry. I'll hit 6 on the keyboard. I'll hit R to get my scale tool, and I'll just get them placed where I want. I've returned to my perspective view to start the modeling of the windows themselves. I'll right click and choose face. I'll select the inside 3 faces, click on my extrude button, and in the extrude button attributes, I'm going to click on keep faces together to separate them so that now when I use my scale tool, by clicking on any of the little boxes at the end of the vertex, and then using the light blue one and dragging towards the lower left-hand corner, I can scale each window. Now I want to do something similar that I did with the windows for the walls, so I'll either hit G on the keyboard or I'll click on the extrude button on my toolbar. I'll center it and I'll just drag that back a bit. And now I have the windows I need for the top. I'll right click and go back to my object mode. I'll hit my up arrow. So there's my door. And what I'm going to do now is freeze the transforms, delete the history, and center the pivot. Now I need to put thickness on this door as well, just like I did with the frame. Now these are separate pieces of geometry. So now what I'm going to do is I'll hit W on the keyboard, and I'll shift select, I'll hold down my space bar, I will go to mesh, and I'm going to choose combine. So now it's one piece of geometry again, which means now I can right click, go to edge, and I can start to select these edges. I'll shift select the ones just on the outside. And I'll click on my extrude button. I'll center the pivot. I'll just drag back on the x-axis to give it some thickness. I'll right click, return to object mode, freeze the transforms, center the pivot, delete the history, hit W, and I'll place that back inside the wall where it belongs, and we'll save.